Welcome to The Living Legends. I am Fayaz Qureshi. In today's edition of The Living Legends, we hear the story of a man who once worked in these studios as a broadcaster, but he is better known for his work on the silver screens. He has played the role of Kabaka Mutesa, a homeless man, Harkomba in China, as Johnny Kimathi in The Bush Trackers, and as Kimani Maruge. You remember the man who went back to school age 83 in the film The First Grader. It is a pleasure to hear the story of broadcaster and actor Oliver Litondo, who joins us via Zoom from Kisumu. Oliver Litondo, it's an extreme pleasure, specifically for me, having worked with you as my senior at KTN. It was absolutely a pleasure working with such a great personality in those days, and you still are a great personality, a living legend. Welcome to The Living Legends.
Thank you, Fayaz, and good evening, viewers. I'm glad to be back home. This is where I started my local broadcasting, but then Voice of Kenya, VOK, but of course now KBC. So I'm glad to be back, and I'm glad to be talking to you. Some of you are too young to remember me in those days, but those who are still of the same age as I am will remember those days when I was
You're an absolute legend. You're remembered by all generations. Now, let's start off. Tell us a little bit about your early life and education.
Well, I was born in Western Kenya, in a small village called Shikunga in Idaho location. I was born of a very, in those days, prosperous family, Christian family. My mother came from a ruling clan of my location. My father came from a fairly rich background. So the two of them got together and they made a great couple. And I grew up as a village boy, of course. I went to school in my village. And then for my secondary school, I went to Kakamega, now Kakamega High School. In those days it was called Government African School. I had picked from among the people that were top in their last examinations in each school. The principal then, Mr. Chapman, used to go around to pick the brightest from those schools himself. And so Kakamega was a top school in Western Kenya. Now, after my A-levels, I proceeded to the United States, where I enrolled in a university in Midwest. The Midwest of America is known for its farming industry. They're farmers mostly. So I then graduated and went to Harvard University, where I studied drama. Of course, when I was at the University of Iowa, at Iowa University, Iowa Wesleyan University rather, I was doing drama as well. I went to the Loeb Drama Center at Harvard University, where I continued my studies in acting, producing, but on stage, of course, and writing plays. And then after Harvard, I went to Europe, enrolled at the University of Stockholm in Sweden, where I continued my tutorship in films, drama on stage, and acting as well. So my journey ended up in Stockholm, and where I interacted with some of the great producers there, as Ingmar Bergman, some big producer in Europe, but a Swede. I came back to Kenya, and I was lucky to get a job at the East African Publishing House, which was then publishing an academic journal called East Africa Journal, which was read by a lot of academia in East African territory, Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, and went even abroad. So I became its editor. Then while I was there...
That was very interesting. You got into the, you started off with the East Africa Journal. Now, how did one get into media then, before the area of study was well entrenched in curriculum?
Well, I know that the universities in Kenya were not at that time offering studies in journalism or journalism around either print or broadcast. But with my experience abroad, having studied the two, acting, drama and journalism, I had a chance to get into the VOK. How did I get there? I got there
so all right, continue, yes?
Yeah?
Please continue.
I came to the VOK by way of coming for an interview in voicing and in presentation. And I must say, I made a great impression on the management of VOK. So they took me right away, and I started doing various programs, anchoring various programs. So I had to resign from the East African Journal because I couldn't hold that job and then do something at the Voice of Kenya.
You were a primetime news anchor with, of course, Voice of Kenya then. And before we go there, I'm going to ask you what your experience was in those days at Voice of Kenya. I said, before I ask you about your experience at Voice of Kenya in those days, there is a blast from the past.
Okay.
Oliver Litondo with Ruth Nangurai reading the news on Voice of Kenya. So we're going to watch a short clip of that.
Jambo wananchi, na karibuni katika kipindi chetu cha mikoani, kipindi ambacho waleteeni mambo mbalimbali kutoka sehemu mbalimbali za mikoani. Kushirikiana nami kama kawaida ni mwenzangu Oliver Litondo. Je, Oliver, una yapi ya kuambia watazamaji wetu leo?
Tunayo mengi sana, Ruth. Kwanza,
your reaction?
Well, yeah, you just said a young Oliver Litondo, handsome, I think, and dashing around.
Very handsome, still very handsome.
I made that impression. My presentation, my appearance, my diction, my English. I had a bit of an American accent, but it slowly went away, and I became an Englishman.
Now, the first grader, this was a role that younger Kenyans know you for, playing Kimani Maruge, who went back to school in his late years. And then, of course, as a homeless man in The Truth About Stanley, and a biopic on the late Father Anthony Kaiser, the rugged priest. And the last three are all about real people and real life. How do you find these roles?
You know, the other films that you mentioned were produced here by producers from Hollywood in America. So those of us who had a chance to act in them were lucky to get parts to play. Like the one you mentioned with Sidney Poitier and Michael Caine starring. We had to go for auditions. There will be conspiracy. We had to go for auditions, and the producers then listened to you, whatever lines they gave you to say, and they then decided who they wanted. But I must say, I've been lucky all along, or I was lucky all along, that in every audition that I went for, I was taken. So those ones were produced by Hollywood big names. The one that you mentioned Maruge, the first grader, which depicts Maruge at the age of, actually he was 84, going back to school after President Mwai Kibaki promulgated free primary school, and he took advantage of that. He had been trying all his life to get an education. He didn't succeed. Then the Mau came, he was arrested, and he was detained. And when he came back from detention to go to school, he had to have some money fees to pay and so on, which he didn't have. So a chance comes here, free primary education. Maruge decides, I'm taking this chance. This is the film that really propelled me to Hollywood. It made the circuits of running around at film festivals from Europe all the way to America. It won.
Yes, you won the AARP Movies for Grown-Ups Award for Best Actor, and the Black Film Critics Circle Award for Best Actor. So this movie was absolutely amazing for you.
And let me tell you, that this one, you know, they wanted even people like Sidney Poitier to play Maruge. They went to him, Sidney Poitier said, no, this is too much of a, it is too challenging. They went to, what's his name? Another very famous actor who also felt he could not play the role. So they then went to Europe, where there were a lot of some of the actors from different countries of Africa, and they couldn't find a suitable person. So when they came here, somebody mentioned my name, and they called me for an audition, and I had a chance to get the lead role, which I played, a challenging role, I must say. And yet it went ahead and won numerous awards, both in Hollywood and in whatever festival, from South Africa to Europe to America to England. And I've won for those for that film more than a dozen awards. The best,
I think it was an extreme honor for Kenyans at large. It was an extreme honor for Kenyans at large.
Yes.
Now, you've worked with film stars like Sidney Poitier, James Earl Jones, and Poppy Montgomery. What are your experiences with them?
Well, I had the honor to work with those big names. And you know that those are big screen names. Sidney Poitier became my mentor and literally my brother. He passed on not too long ago. And I met him when he was shooting the Will Be Conspiracy film. I invited him, I followed him everywhere he went. I wanted to talk to him. And he wouldn't talk to me because he was busy and so on and so forth. And then at one stage, I wrote him a letter. I invited him to come and to my house where I was staying to have dinner with us. And then he said, well, I'm flying to Mount Kenya to do a scene there, maybe there for a few days. But when I come back, I will let you know. Yes, he did let me know, and we met. And then when I was in Hollywood, we had a 5-hour lunch at one of the leading the Four Seasons hotel in Hollywood. We thought he would just give us an hour lunch and that's it. But lo and behold, we bonded with Sidney for 5 long hours. And from there on, he just became our friend, our buddy. We talked even when we came back to Kenya. He used to call, we used to call him, and we would talk. So that gave me a chance through that film to know Sidney, and we became friends. Then
so over the years, with all these great personalities, you developed personal friendships, which was very good.
Yes, I developed these personalities not only in acting, but also in production. We developed friendship with some of the big producers in Hollywood, some of whom wished and still wish they would come and produce films here in Kenya. We have those friends just there ready to come and do some productions here. And as you know, we'll talk about that later. I hope you will bring it up. As you know, our film industry has been sleeping for a while.
Yeah, that's what I want to come to now. What is the way forward for Kenya's film and arts industry?
I think the art and film industry in Kenya is bright. Why do I say so? Despite the fact that some people may think it is down. It may be down, but not dead. We are ready to revive it. It is reviving. We have wonderful creative minds here. Young people willing to write scripts. Young people willing to act. Young people willing to produce. Young people willing to be stagehands, technicians, lighting, cameramen, props, ready, sound. Young people who have no jobs here are ready to work even as just free hands. And this film industry in Kenya is lying fallow. It has to be reawakened. And how will we reawaken it? We will reawaken it if the whole country does appreciate that film is a big employer. Film is a big employer. The people we talk about, the young people who have no employment. The film industry doesn't need too much to be put into it. You have a production, you have people, you call them to do this, to do that. Some of them may even be training on that film, and we offer them some remuneration as they train, as they do their work. So the aspect that we need to harness are, one, the government to come in with its support. Two, the stakeholders themselves, the actors, the producers, the screenwriters. Three, the private sector. We have to harness these three sectors in our economy to actually come and support the Kenyan film industry.
Yes, it would have a very bright future. And
yes,
you are a prime example. You are our role model who will inspire this younger generation. And
precisely,
we hold you in very high esteem because what you have achieved is unbelievable. Absolutely phenomenal.
I'm willing, Fayez, I'm willing to do whatever I can to put into the film industry in this Kenya my expertise at whatever level, in whatever capacity. And I'm saying this because Kenya was the first country to be recognized by Hollywood as the one country that had all the aspects of filming: the weather, the people, the sceneries, the animals, the beach and sands, sands and sun, the forests, the deserts. We have it all here. You know, we have been losing to South Africa lately because South Africa has been giving Hollywood producers incentives, some rebates.
You're right. I'm sorry I'll have to come in. We're running short of time. You're right. We need to create incentives for the international industries to come here and be a part of, I think, a new industry altogether. And
precisely,
thank you very much for actually saying that you would actually help and contribute and make this happen.
Thank you.
Oliver Litondo, it's been an extreme pleasure speaking to an absolute living legend. Thank you very much. Asante sana.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking to Oliver Litondo. He played the role of Mzee Kimani Maruge in the film The First Grader, as they celebrated the life of the man who went back to school aged 83. He is featured in other films like Sheena and The Bush Trackers, making him one of the greats of Kenya's broadcast and silver screen industry. Thank you very much, Oliver Litondo, for speaking to us. I am Fayaz Qureshi. Thank you for watching.